is very partisan and very protracted. That's why we need better science. We do need more flexibility within the delivery system. We need an enlargement of Millerton Lake at the least. We need to take advantage of the water that we have here today and not let it go further south, out of the valley. Without water, there is no life. There is no agriculture. We need to think smarter. One hill over, in a place called Silicon Valley, they now talk about smart grids. They talk about the ability to move water about much more effectively and efficiently. We need to keep the price of water down for our farmers, and we need to keep it here. Thank you. Look, 2,400 pages of legislation, and as a Democrat, it was very difficult for myself to follow that. I don't know how any of us, are just average citizens, but we all want a good health care system in the United States for each and every person. And I think we need to look at how to drive down costs through efficiencies. I used to work for a medical equipment manufacturer for radiation therapy. I understand what the Bureau of Radiological Health is and FDA and regulations in that respect. Those are already on the book. So the question is, do we really need additional legislation in order to provide quality health care programs? The other is preventative health care programs. Obesity is the #1 issue that we're facing in our district because of poverty, because of the type of diet that's available and the cost of food, or the availability, or the absence of exercise and having after-school programs. I think no one's going to be able to overturn the legislation as it's enacted, but we can incrementally improve it and make it much better for everyone, much more affordable. And just to share with you, I'm not immune from it, just like the rest of you. Our health care costs, we had to pay 100% for my wife and I, and it doubled in the last 8 years. And the backdrop to all this is, look at the federal budget overall, $3.8 trillion, of which $1.6 trillion, or 42% of our budget, is red ink. We've got $45 trillion already of entitlements. People want something. They desire health care. They desire a good educational system. But we all have to be willing to pay for it, or we'll have to make these adjustments. Republicans and Democrats, prior administrations have spent, whether they taxed or borrowed, one way or another. We need to get our economy back in place and our budget back in balance. Thank you. Pointed out the fact that the 20th Congressional District is the lowest ranking as it relates to human development, as it relates to poverty, as it relates to education and health. This didn't happen overnight. It's been going on for decades. And you just look towards Washington or Sacramento and look at the fact that, regardless of the administration, that we were spending more than we were bringing in. That's the aspirations of providing a quality of life. And if you look at globalization, if you look at what was occurring over these last decades with the economy and hollowing out our economy, China now will be the #1 car manufacturer and market in the world. They are in the leading edge when it comes to even green jobs, talking about the batteries to run electric cars, or the solar panels that you're seeing installed. We need to have a Marshall Plan, and we have to have an imperative, a sense of urgency. We need to refocus and rebuild, retool our economy here. Those innovators, those corporate leaders, talking about Wall Street, financiers, they have forgotten Main Street. And when you go to each of those towns, Huron, Mendota, or Stratford, you're seeing a chronic problem. What is the #1 job killer in agriculture? Is it water? I would venture to guess it's mechanization. Because when my family, on both sides, were involved, they were working in the fields many decades ago. You needed a lot of working hands. But now, what is killing this economy is the housing collapse. And what is killing each and every one of us, our families, is the fact that the value of our homes are less than what we pay. We have to have an imperative, a moral imperative to help each other out and build that church and build that school and make this a better place. In a lot of respects. Now, I'm saying that to advise you of the fact that this issue is so politicized that it makes it very difficult to try to solve the problems associated with the Delta and water distribution throughout the state of California. Jobs, vibrant communities, good educational system, assuring that we have a strong agricultural economic foundation is imperative. But to pit the San Joaquin Valley against other farming communities throughout Central Valley, our valley as a whole, including 500,000 acres of irrigated lands in the Delta. There are over 6,300 permits to draw water out of the Delta, 245 million acre feet of water. That's 8 times more than what the Sierra Nevada, the Sacramento River, and the San Joaquin River flows into the Delta. Yes, there are problems. That's why the state of California, under what was called CalFed, worked very hard to try to solve these problems. There are great ideas such as two-gate, building flexibility within the Delta and assuring that the farmers there, as well as the Sacramento Valley farmers, have their water as well. Unfortunately, there's an archaic issue dealing with water rights. Under the state constitution, Article 10, Section 2, each and every drop of water belongs to all of us, the people of California. And there are rights to use that water for beneficial use, highest and best use. Highest and best use is for urban needs. Los Angeles, when you go over to Tehachapi and you see the California Aqueduct and the pipes, there's 18 million people that depend on those, the waters being delivered safely. What we need to do here locally, and I do have a plan, and you can go to my website for that, is to come up with our own regional distribution system in the Tulare Lake Basin. Already the plumbing is there, and already there's been a movement underway to provide the necessary funds and investments to allow for cross-valley distribution of water from the water-rich east side to the water-poor west side. The amount of water that has been delivered over the last 20 years has averaged about 68%. Just because you have the right to use the water does not mean that you will be provided that water if you're last in line. And unfortunately, the Westlands Water District is last in line when it comes to their allocation. I've been working with farmers on the west side. You're not going to hear their names. I've worked with farmers in the Kings River Basin, and there has been activities occurring that are very similar to what occurred over on the other side of the Sierras in the Owens Valley. Water is being sold out from underneath the farmer, and there are opportunities for us to enact legislation such as H.R. 3750, which is Costa's legislation. And when asked, what are the assurances, the guarantees, and the safeguards that once that water is here, that it will remain secure? The same companion legislation with Senator Feinstein. Same question, and there was silence. Why? Because 3 sales have occurred. One to $77 million over to a wealthy individual in the Bay Area. Another one is the Mojave Water Agency to convert farm water or agricultural purposes into urban use out in the desert, out in the Mojave Desert. And the most recent one has occurred is to urban use down in Southern California through the Irvine Water District. And a third one, fourth one, I'm sorry, just occurred up in the Bay Area with Cargill, where they're looking at a 30-year supply. So it's much more complex than just the Delta smell. Thank you.
Mr. Kinsinar?
First, let me answer the question that's before us here. The question was whether or not this is a regulatory crisis, and it is. The